And a very good morning to you. It is 7 a.m. Welcome to ONNJ Mornings. I'm Ken Rosato. We will take your calls at 888-658-0234, 888-658-0234. And thankfully, I don't have to say bundle up before you head out. Let's head to meteorologist Mike Pavetta, a first check of not a bad Garden State forecast. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Ken. You're right. It's not that bad. You can actually get out of the house with maybe just a light jacket or a sweatshirt this morning because this afternoon, with temperatures starting above freezing in Newark and Hackensack, 36 and 37 degrees for you, we will see highs warm into the 40s, up around 50 by the end of the day. Feeling quite pleasant. Even the winds are light with a little bit of an easterly breeze coming in 5 to 8 miles per hour. That even makes the wind chill feel like it's above freezing. 29 in Morristown still, and feels like 30 over in Trenton. Now, it's running a few degrees warmer than this time yesterday, and this is going to be the trend through the rest of this week. Every day, we'll see a few degrees warmer weather move on through with a pretty sunrise happening. Those clouds from last night now moving out east. So, with the clearing that occurs today, we're back to full sunshine this morning, making for that gorgeous sunrise. Just minutes ago at 6:44, we'll enjoy a clear afternoon ahead. And with that, temperatures will spike as a result. So our highs today will warm back into the mid 50s inland toward Trenton, even down by Mount Holly and over in Camden. A lovely southerly breeze pushing in that warmer air for this afternoon. Into this evening, it stays mild. We'll be in the 40s right through 7 o'clock, even well after sunset. And then we have the chance of some extra clouds and maybe a sprinkle in northern New Jersey come through by the end of the day tomorrow. You see that here just in time for the evening rush, primarily northern sections of the state, even though it's mostly cloudy everywhere else. There'll be another round of mild weather coming in for Wednesday, and even Thursday, we could see those highs again near the upper 50s, maybe even 60 degrees. So a milder trend. We'll take it day by day, as even though there's some possible showers in the forecast late tomorrow, it's mostly cloudy. We stay dry on Wednesday with those highs creeping up into springtime territory. We'll tell you more about it with a full check of the weather. Ken, that's coming up in a few minutes.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. It is now 31 degrees. Ooh, not so bad. 7:02 is our time. And in terms of traffic, we do have that a crash, I should say, on the Garden State Parkway southbound at exit 130BA. That's US 1 in Woodbridge Township. The right shoulder is blocked. Of course, we still have that emergency construction and on that sinkhole on I-80 eastbound at exit 34, Route 15 in Wharton. All lanes are closed. Everyone's being detoured. And as we've been saying, it's going to be weeks before that is completed. So folks in that area, it's just part of the routine now. I know it's going to be that way for a few more weeks, unfortunately. We also have delays on Route 42 northbound from north of exit 10A, which is Route 168 in Gloucester Township, to I-295 in Belmar. The lanes are open, but we have delays because of volume. That happens. It seems to be like a sunrise thing. At this time, almost every day, as the sun is rising and going in people's faces, they hit the brakes through that area. And we also have delays on Route 21 southbound from Wright Street to Division Street in Newark, with about a 10-minute ride there as opposed to the normal ride. Finally, delays on the Garden State Parkway northbound from north of exit 147 Clinton Avenue in East Orange to exit 150 Hoover Avenue, Bloomfield. All lanes are open, but it's about a 2-mile delay. And again, just all volume. That happens at this hour of the morning. So this hour being 7:04. In our news now, Pope Francis remains in critical but stable condition as he receives treatment for double pneumonia and weakening kidneys. Doctors say the pontiff has double pneumonia from multiple respiratory infections. The 88-year-old, who's about to be 89 next week, is receiving oxygen and at least one transfusion of blood. In spite of his illness, Vatican officials say Pope Francis remains tranquil, and they say he's guarded right now. He seems to be a little better than he was over the weekend. They're keeping the fingers crossed. 7:04, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said yesterday that he would be willing to resign from his post in exchange for peace in Ukraine or a membership in NATO. Zelensky's offer is a major concession amid an ongoing public dispute with President Trump, which escalated last week when Trump suggested the Ukrainian president was responsible for starting the war with Russia. But you'll recall, actually, Russia launched the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 itself. In response, the Ukrainian president accused Trump of living in a, quote, disinformation bubble and pushing Kremlin talking points, not the brightest move when you are asking for billions of dollars in aid to keep your nation from falling to the Russians. Zelensky also pointed out at one point last week, he said he couldn't account for $100 billion the U.S. had given him. Now, over the weekend, he said that that was actually a grant, not a loan. Why didn't he say that last week when we asked him where the money was? He still can't account for where that grant went, the $100 billion US dollars. And of course, he's asking for more now. In total, we've given about $200 billion to Ukraine. The Trump administration believes they may be able to strike a peace deal in the years-long war between Ukraine and Russia as soon as this week. Coming up on 7:06, Germany's conservative opposition leader Friedrich Merz was victorious in yesterday's national election there, while Alternative for Germany nearly doubled its support, the strongest showing for a far-right party since World War II. Chancellor Olaf Scholz conceded defeat for his left-wing Social Democrats after what he called, quote, a bitter election result. The liberal Social Democrats have received much criticism in recent years for severely limiting free speech, including publicly arresting German citizens whenever they post what the government deems to be offensive comments on social media, especially anything to deal with race, and for allowing mass migration into Germany from Muslim countries, mostly outside of Europe. In fact, since their mass migration began 20 years ago, Muslims now account for nearly 7% of Germany's total population, and their integration has not been very peaceful, with much resistance from German nationalists. In fact, rioters from both sides, the German nationalists and Muslims, have taken to the streets in protest of one another over the years. The issue of Muslim migration into Germany is believed to be the impetus behind the nation's highest election turnout in decades, anywhere from 60 to 85%, depending on which poll you trust. 7:07 is our time. The Trump administration will begin deporting illegal alien minors in some cases. Up till now, the administration resisted deporting minors, but many individuals have been lying about their ages, claiming to be minors when they were actually over 18. Also, parents have been sending their minor children across the border alone, hoping to catch up with them at a later time. Problem is, many sex traffickers have been intercepting those children and forcing them into a cruel life of abuse. Now ICE will modify their rule about deporting minors and will deal with the issue on a case-by-case basis. More than 600,000 children have crossed the U.S.-Mexico border illegally without a parent since 2019. 7:08, a South Carolina man on death row has chosen to be killed by firing squad. The first time in 15 years that capital punishment would have been carried out by gunfire in the United States. 67-year-old Brad Sigmund is scheduled to be shot to death on March 7th, part of a spate of rapid killings that South Carolina has recently pursued as it revives executions after a 13-year pause. Death row inmates there have a choice in the way they're put to death: electric chair, lethal injection, or shooting. If they do not make the decision themselves, the state will electrocute them. 7:08, and liberal talk show host Joy Reid's evening news show on MSNBC has been canceled, part of a far-reaching programming overhaul orchestrated by Rebecca Cutler, the network's new president. The final episode of Ms. Reid's far left-wing 7 p.m. show, The Readout, is planned for sometime this week. It's been a fixture on MSNBC's lineup for the past 5 years. Reid has been criticized over the years for past homophobic statements, as well as her regular race baiting and accusations that President Trump and MAGA supporters are Nazis and fascists. 7:09, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's decision to fire top lawyers for the Army, Navy, and Air Force represents an opening salvo in his push to remake the military into a force that is more aggressive on the battlefield and potentially less hindered by the laws of armed conflict. Hegseth has spoken about the need to restore a so-called warrior ethos to a military that has become soft, social justice obsessed, and more bureaucratic over the past 2 decades. Have you ever been stuck in traffic only to daydream about your car lifting straight up and flying over all the stopped cars ahead of you? Well, we all have, right? At some point, we've all desired to just pick up and go around everybody. Well, Orlando International Airport may soon be home to the nation's first flying cars. The Greater Orlando Aviation Authority is seeking partners to develop and operate a flying car landing pad that would be called a vertiport at the airport. The invitation is expected to be published in March with a 2028 target for the finished product. So ostensibly what you would do is drive to the airport, park your car, then get into one of the flying cars and use that as a launch point to go to regional trips. So it wouldn't really be for ultra local and it wouldn't be for distant. But if you have to travel within an hour, say, of Orlando, that would be the ideal way to do it. Our time now is 7:11 and a little milder today for New Jersey. Meteorologist Mike Favetta will return in just a moment with your full Garden State forecast. Plus, we will take your calls, 888-658-0234, 888-658-0234. You are watching On New Jersey Mornings at 7:11. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to On New Jersey Mornings for your Monday. I'm Ken Rosato at 7:14. We will take your calls at 888-658-0234. 888-658-0234. Little milder today for New Jersey, right to meteorologist Mike Favetta with the Garden State forecast. Good morning to you, Mike.
Good morning to you, Ken. Yeah, it's a nice week ahead. We'll take the milder weather and with it, highs that'll be well above average beginning today and lasting right through the rest of this week. Now, there will be some times of rain. We'll get to that part of the forecast in just a bit, but look at these highs this afternoon in the 50s with that wind coming off from the south. It'll be lovely with that nice southerly breeze aiding in that warm up, even lasting into this evening. You notice the air isn't as dry, and that's also an indication spring around the corner without that not only cold but extremely dry air. We'll take it. There's another chance of rain that comes in tomorrow afternoon, and you see it here really late in the day after we've hit the high for the afternoon, coming in again around 50. So a few light showers into tomorrow evening, which clear and bring back even more sunshine and more warmth by Wednesday, starting off in the upper 30s, but quickly climbing into the 40s by Wednesday afternoon, and we'll likely hit 60 in a few spots, I think, once we get to Wednesday, middle of the day. So the reason for tomorrow's clouds, and again, the chance of that shower, specifically in northern New Jersey, it's a fast-moving system that typically, when the air is colder, it would give us a little bit of a dusting, maybe up to an inch, much like a clipper system. But in tomorrow's case, it's a little too mild with that southerly flow of air, so we'll keep it rain. And with those clouds across most of the state, feeling quite like spring. Here's the system that's moving in for later tomorrow, kind of shuffling along the northeast, giving us our clouds in most of New Jersey, and then the rain just in northern New Jersey. But with that stagnant air and more humidity, air quality has declined a little bit. We'll talk more about what these mean, these colors and the shades, in just a little bit with our next weather update. Highs today, however, will feel great. 54 in Freehold, 50 over in Point Pleasant, and 52 back over in Flemington. So with the hour-by-hour forecast even going beyond that into the middle of the week, notice by Thursday, we have another front that moves on through, and this will give portions of New Jersey a little bit of rain throughout most of the day. The best chance of seeing that wet weather this week for southern and central New Jersey is really on Thursday afternoon. And then by Saturday, something's brewing. It's popped up on the maps earlier this morning. It's the first time we're seeing it, but Saturday, there's enough cold air in play and there's enough moisture that there could be a little bit of snow come through by Saturday afternoon. It's one to watch, just something that I think we'll see on the 7-day each and every day this week. As far as that weekend, there's that chance of snow that just popped up for Saturday. Again, with temperatures milder, I think we'll see the temperature drop throughout the day, and there it is on Sunday, 39 as the high with a drier weekend ahead. So other than the chances of rain and a spring-like feel, it does get colder this weekend. So Ken will have to see day by day if that snow holds together for Saturday.
Yeah, snow. There you go. All right. Thank you very much, Mike. That favorite word of meteorologist. I appreciate you, sir. It is 30 degrees now. It's 7:17. We do have a little bit of traffic to tell you about. We have a crash on the New Jersey Turnpike Western Spur northbound, just north of interchange 15E, which is routes 1 and 9 in Newark. All lanes remain open. Vehicles have been moved to the right shoulder. We also have problems, of course, that emergency construction on I-80 eastbound at exit 34, which is Route 15 in Wharton. All lanes remain closed. Everybody's being detoured off. Our poor director, Pam, was telling me she got stuck on that the other day. It's just a mess, and unfortunately, it's going to be that way for a few weeks. So just avoid that. Just take the detour and just don't even try getting onto I-80 prior to that point if you're heading eastbound. We have delays on the New Jersey Turnpike Western Spur northbound from the Southern Mixing Bowl in Newark to north of interchange 15W, which is I-280 in Kearney. All lanes open, but there is a big 3-mile delay, all due to volume at this time. Also, we have problems on the New Jersey Turnpike I-95 local lanes northbound from exit 71, which is Broad Avenue in Englewood to the GWB in Fort Lee, about a 1.5-mile delay. That's due to delays on the GW Bridge itself. Delays at the Holland Tunnel, South Tunnel eastbound on the New Jersey side, the toll plaza in Jersey City. The lanes are open, but now travel time is over 20 minutes going into the city. And that's coming from the Turnpike exit 14C and 20 minutes also from Route 139. And we also have problems as we continue here at 719 on the, on Route 42, northbound north of exit 10A, which is Route 168 Black Horse Pike in Gloucester Township to 295 in Belmore. All lanes are open, but there are some big delays. All of that is due to volume. 719 is our time. And if it happens in Trenton politics, then you will hear about it from New Jersey Globe editor David Wildstein. Here's David now with the Inside Edge.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Inside Edge. Today is Monday, 24th of February. Last week, Congressman Tom Kean said he'd reintroduce the One Seat Ride Act. That would let some New Jersey commuters on the Raritan Valley line go from New Jersey to New York without having to transfer trains in Newark. And I think it's probably worth sharing a fascinating backstory on one seat rides and how government didn't work on something that should have been done 50 years ago. Uh, but changes in administration, NIMBYism, not in my backyard, a lack of follow through, local disagreements. It basically put New Jersey commuters and members of Congress like Kane and Bonnie Watson Coleman in a situation where they're now being forced to negotiate a deal that was already signed and sealed 60 years ago. The story starts back in 1961. The governor of New York, Nelson Rockefeller, wanted to build the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers in Lower Manhattan. It was a $500 million project. By the way, it eventually wound up being around $900 million. And he wanted the Port Authority to build it for New York, and that involves sign off from New Jersey. So Rockefeller made a deal with Governor Bob Minor. First, it was for the Port Authority to take over the bankrupt Hudson and Manhattan Railroad, that's now known as PATH, and also to invest money in extending PATH from Newark on a one-seat ride, not just to Newark Airport, but also one-seat rides to Cranford, to Westfield, all the way out to Plainfield. That was valued around $350 million. And 12 years later, the Twin Towers opened its doors, but here was New Jersey, 3 governors later, and their part of the deal never happened. This was mostly New Jersey's fault. There was a whole lot of arguing over how the rail tracks would be laid out, which towns they would cross through. You had local governments like the Westfield Town Council holding out for a better deal, so passing a resolution in opposition to this one-seat ride plan. Imagine a one-seat ride to Plainfield for the last 50 years. This could have been a game changer for economic growth in central New Jersey. And every time a Westfield commuter or someone from that area complains about switching trains, about some of the delays they have to endure, they should remember that it didn't have to be that way. This is what happens when government fails. So that's all I have for today. Thanks everybody for listening, and I'll be back tomorrow.
All right, David Wildstein, like only he can present it. 723, Dan Bongino, a former U.S. Secret Service agent who has penned best-selling books, ran unsuccessfully for office and gained fame as a conservative pundit with TV shows and a popular podcast, has been chosen to serve as FBI Deputy Director. President Trump announced the appointment last night in a post on Truth Social, praising Bongino as a man of incredible love and passion for our country. He called the announcement great news for law enforcement and American justice. The selection places 2 staunch Trump allies atop the nation's premier federal law enforcement agency at a time when Democrats are concerned the president could seek to target his adversaries. Bongino would serve under Kash Patel, who was sworn in as FBI director at the White House on Friday, and who has signaled his intent to reshape the Bureau, including relocating hundreds of employees from the Washington headquarters and placing greater emphasis on the FBI's traditional crime-fighting duties. The deputy director serves as the FBI's second in command and is traditionally a career agent responsible for the Bureau's day-to-day law enforcement operations. Bongino, you'll recall, was with the Secret Service, so he has been in law enforcement his entire life. The 49-year-old Bongino served on the presidential details for then Presidents Barack Obama and George W. Bush before becoming a popular right-wing figure. 724, Vice President J.D. Vance was the clear favorite to be President Trump's successor in the MAGA movement in a straw poll conducted at CPAC on Saturday. 61% of CPAC's attendees said they would support Vance as the future GOP standard bearer. 12% said that they would support Trump's former advisor, Steve Bannon, the guy who never shaves, while 7% said they would vote for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. A new YouGov survey finds that America's trust in the media to state the facts fully, accurately, and fairly is low. In fact, Pam, I'm going to call for those graphics now if we can, because I'm going to throw our director off here. I'm sorry, Pam. So let's bring up the YouGov graphics as if we could. There you go. Thank you. I apologize for making that kind of a curveball. So apparently this is, thank you. Apparently the deal here is, this is from this YouGov poll, which is pretty interesting, that the American people do not trust the media to state facts fully, accurately, and fairly. Only 29% say they have a fair amount or a great deal of trust in American media. More, about 44%, though, have at least a fair amount of trust in President Trump's administration to state the facts fully. So it's close to double the amount of trust in the president than in American media, which in all my years as a journalist, I have never heard. But I think a lot of it comes from the sky is falling claims that American media has made over the last few years about President Trump, while looking America in the eye and saying that President Biden was sharp as a tack and wide awake when he clearly had mental decline. You keep lying to the public on camera over and over again, eventually they see through it. And apparently this poll is reflecting that. Now, the survey also found that Americans are more likely to see the media's coverage of Trump as too negative than to see it as too positive. About 4 in 10 believe the media wants Trump to fail. And if they continue with that attitude, media will fail. 726. President Donald Trump's newly confirmed FBI director, Kash Patel, is expected to take on another top law enforcement role in the administration as head of the Bureau of Tobacco, Alcohol, and Firearms and Explosives. Patel's appointment could be made official as soon as next week. The ATF, part of the Department of Justice, enforces federal laws regarding the illegal use, sale, and trafficking of firearms and explosives. It's been a frequent target of Republican lawmakers who say the agency infringes on the Second Amendment, particularly as former President Biden empowered it to close a loophole that eased the process of buying firearms. 727, California's Governor Gavin Newsom sent a letter to members of Congress, get this, requesting $40 billion in funding to rebuild communities after those wildfires devastated parts of Los Angeles. Newsom praised the Trump administration for clearing the region's toxic debris in just weeks, after California's environmental experts said it could take a year. So get this, the environmental experts, the EPA of California, said no one could go in and rebuild their homes for at least a year because it'll take that long to clear out the toxic debris. President Trump sent in all his troops and they cleaned up the debris in 3 weeks. The disparity is mind-boggling. The request came just a day after Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass removed the city's fire chief in response to the region's deadly January wildfires. California is a sanctuary state. Some lawmakers say liberal lawmakers there have spent $20 billion in the last year alone on illegal migrants. Now, if they need $40 billion for the fire-ravaged areas, if they hadn't spent the $20 billion on illegal migrants, think about the savings that would have gone to rebuilding their state. That's money that could have helped Angelenos in that current rebuilding effort. It is 31 degrees, 728. The phone lines are open. We will take your calls at 888-658-0234. 888-658-0234. When we come back, meteorologist Mike Favetta says it'll be a little milder today, partly sunny skies. New Jersey should smile after last week. The full Garden State forecast in a moment. You are watching ONNJ Mornings, seen daily on ONNJ.com, Roku, Fire TV, News On, Samsung TV Plus, Apple TV, YouTube, Facebook, and X, and now streamed live on Rumble and Twitch at twitch.tv/ONNJ. Spell it all out. Don't just put the NJ. We're coming right back. Very good morning. 31 degrees, 7:31. I'm Ken Rosato. Welcome to On New Jersey Mornings. Partly sunny and a little milder today for New Jersey. Meteorologist Mike Favetta has the Garden State forecast. Good morning to you, Mike.
Hey, good morning, Ken. That sun is looking really nice outside. A pleasant way to start the day. We're getting the week off on the right foot, especially with highs above average. And it's not as windy. There's a calm breeze outside, allowing for a pretty feel around this morning, not terribly harsh. The clouds that come in tomorrow could bring in a few showers as well, just for northern New Jersey. And then we enjoy those 60s by Wednesday. That'll feel very pleasant. It's Thursday that brings on another round of rain. So we've been talking about how cold it has been and the polar vortex breaking off and diving into New Jersey, especially last week. Well, now the good news is the polar vortex stays put. And here in New Jersey, we enjoy a little bit of a southerly breeze pushing in, allowing for some milder weather to take over through the middle of the week. So with all of that mild air, we enjoy temperatures that hold in the mid 50s today down the shore from Hamilton and Egg Harbor City inland. Low 50s due to an easterly breeze. It'll only be in the 40s from Atlantic City down south, even toward Avalon and Cape May, but still plenty of mild air that's left for the next few days. The statewide average today gets up to about 50. That's well warmer than our average high of 45. And that sunrise happening earlier and earlier, 6:38 now, as we really add on several more minutes to each and every day with our daylight hours. Now, with the clouds from earlier this morning moving east, we've got a lovely start to the day, nice and sunny and dry, and we'll keep it that way into this afternoon. But the rain chances return by the time we get to tomorrow. We'll be up at about a 20% chance. Again, this is for the statewide average. The best chance of seeing that wet weather is in the northern section of New Jersey tomorrow afternoon. Then by Thursday, another shot of rain and precip, likely in the frozen form, coming in on Saturday. That will give us our next round of snow. So as our rainfall chances increase through the next few days, that also keeps the air quality a little bit worse. Anytime this number is above 50, that's in the moderate level. Anytime it's above 100 is when you really need to take caution. But those super sensitive, maybe it's best to avoid the outdoor run today with these numbers holding in that 50 to 100 range. That's a moderate air quality. Not too bad, but also not perfect. And the forecast today puts it up at about 80 in Newark. So again, you'll likely see that haze in the sky before the end of the day. With our futurecast putting in a clear sky throughout this evening, the rain returns for northern New Jersey tomorrow as that front slides through, but stays to our north, ultimately giving us another round of mild weather by the middle of the week. Wednesday looks great. Thursday has our next chance of rain after that, and then I think we start off the weekend a little bit cooler with those temperatures falling by the end of the work week. So our week starts off nice and mild, stays mild. We climb into the 50s throughout the middle of the week. And then by Thursday, with that rain, some places could see as warm as 60. There is a little bit of a cool down on the way that puts us back in the 30s by Saturday. And there's our chance for some rain and snow that comes in by Saturday, probably late morning, early afternoon. Southern New Jersey, better chance for some just clouds for you tomorrow. And then by Thursday and Friday, we see those temperatures start to cool off and hold back down in the 30s, maybe upper 40s, upper 30s, low 40s by Sunday. Less of a chance of snow for you by Saturday, and southern New Jersey looks to skirt the northern sections of the state. We'll talk more about that potential snow on Saturday, Ken, and see what else March will surprise us with coming up in a few minutes.
Ooh, the Ides of March. All right. Thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much, Mike. Appreciate it, sir. It is 31 degrees at 7:35. And in traffic, we have a crash on 295 northbound, north of exit 24, which is Route 45. In Westville, a left lane and shoulder closed with about a 10-minute delay, so use caution. Crash on the New Jersey Turnpike Western Spur northbound, north of interchange 15E, which is routes 1 and 9 in Newark. All lanes are open, but vehicles being detoured off to the right shoulder. We also have emergency construction still and that sinkhole on I-80 eastbound at exit 34, Route 15 in Wharton. All lanes are closed and everyone's being detoured. That always causes a mess of traffic. Delays on Route 23 southbound, south of Reservoir Road to south of Old Ridge Road in West Milford Township. About a 15-minute travel time as a result. And we have heavy traffic on Route 15 southbound from north of Route 181, which is Esplanade Road, in Jefferson Township to exit 34, Route 15 in Wharton. The current travel time there is about 35 minutes. That's really bad. Also delays on 76 westbound from exit 1A, which is Route 42, I-295 in Belmar, to west of exit 1D, Route 130 in Gloucester City. All lanes are open, just delays due to volume. It is 31 degrees at 7:36. Pope Francis remains in critical condition, but he is stable as he receives treatment for double pneumonia and weakening kidneys. Doctors say the pontiff has double pneumonia from multiple respiratory infections. The 88-year-old is receiving oxygen and at least one blood transfusion so far. In spite of his illness, Vatican officials say Pope Francis remains tranquil, and again, he is now stable. 7:37, Elon Musk announced that all federal employees must send an email outlining what they've accomplished in the last week. If they ignore the demand, it will be considered a resignation. The president of one of the federal employee unions told those employees, don't respond. The vast majority of federal workers have been working from home since the pandemic, in spite of being ordered back to in-person work. Musk, the head of Doge, says that workers' productivity from home is extremely low and in many cases non-existent, which prompted the demand. In fact, many of those workers haven't responded to emails from their bosses in weeks or months, so we don't even know if they still exist. Courts have consistently upheld the president's authority, by the way, to fire federal employees under the executive branch at will. 7:37, the Small Business Administration says it will not look to claw back hundreds of millions of dollars in pandemic-era money handed out to concert venues shuttered by COVID-19. Over $200 million was paid to wealthy and successful musicians. Artist Lil Wayne was among a large number of artists who took millions for luxury clothes and private jets. New records show the SBA has closed out reviews of $155 million in grants to celebs. Some of the others on the list, artists Marshmello, Chris Brown, and Alice in Chains. The SBA says they received taxpayer funds for private jets, parties, luxury clothes, and multi-million-dollar bonuses for themselves, leaving little for staff salaries or benefits. Officials say the grants could legally be used for ordinary and necessary expenses. And the federal government, by the way, has not claimed that all of that spending was illegal. That's just the way the libs wrote the law, that they could take all that money and do whatever they want with it. That is not stopping the likes of Doge from trying to get at least some of that money back, though, hoping that exposing this money grab will prompt a response. 7:39, possibly the worst kept political secret is out. Andrew Cuomo wants to run for mayor of New York City. Sources say the 67-year-old former New York State governor has been gauging his mayoral chances for months. The Queens-born Democrat is registered to vote at a Manhattan address. He says that he's focused on what's going wrong for the city and how he would fix it. Cuomo has topped a crowded primary field in at least one poll. Cuomo is expected to make his candidacy official in the next 2 weeks. Since Cuomo quit Albany in 2021 under a cloud of allegations of ethics violations and sexual harassment, he's been battling to rewrite his legacy. 7:39, Denmark will pour billions more into its military as Europe believes there is now U.S. support for the transatlantic alliance. This as Europe continues seeing aggression from Russia. Over the next 2 years, Denmark will spend an additional $7 billion on defense with plans on buying cutting-edge weapons. The government will also send more equipment to Ukraine. It comes a month after pledging $1.9 billion to reinforce Greenland's defenses as Russia has raised its military profile in the Arctic. As President Trump has said, the U.S. should own the island. Many say Russia could launch a local war against a bordering country such as Denmark within 6 months, something most military experts agree would not happen if the U.S. were to control Greenland. 7:40, apparently the radical left-leaning governor of Wisconsin is not reading the room since the November election. Wisconsin's liberal Democrat Governor Tony Evers is proposing changing references to mothers in state government to the term inseminated person. Can you imagine that? Instead of calling somebody a mom, it is an inseminated person in Wisconsin. But wait, there's more. Other so-called gendered terms were also called on to change, including paternity is now going to be called parentage. Wife or husband will be termed spouse. Father will be called parent. And the word mother also recommended to change to the phrase parent who gave birth to the child. It is 31 degrees at 7:41. Our director, Pam, says OMG to that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm OMGing with you. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said yesterday that he is willing to resign from his post in exchange for peace in Ukraine or a membership in NATO. Zelensky's offer is a major concession amid an ongoing public dispute with President Trump. which escalated last week when Trump suggested the Ukrainian president was responsible for starting the war. In fact, it was Russia that launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. In response, the Ukrainian president accused Trump of living in a disinformation bubble and pushing Kremlin talking points. Not the brightest move when you're also asking for billions in aid to keep your nation from falling to the Russians. Trump then called Zelensky a dictator. The Trump administration believes they could strike a peace deal in the years-long war between Ukraine and Russia as soon as this week. It's 7:42, and Germany's conservative opposition leader Friedrich Merz was victorious in yesterday's national election there, while Alternative for Germany, AFG, nearly doubled its support, the strongest showing for a far-right party since World War II. Chancellor Olaf Scholz conceded defeat for his left-wing Social Democrats after what he called a bitter election result. The liberal Social Democrats have received much criticism in recent years for severely limiting free speech, including recently arresting German citizens whenever they post what the government deems to be offensive comments on social media, especially if they talk about race in any way, and for allowing mass migration into Germany from Muslim countries, mostly outside of Europe. In fact, since their mass migration began 20 years ago, Muslims now account for nearly 7% of Germany's population, and their integration has not been very peaceful, with much resistance from German nationalists. In fact, rioters from both sides have taken to the streets in protest of one another over the years. The issue of Muslim migration into Germany is believed to be the impetus behind the nation's highest election turnout in decades. 31 degrees at 7:43 when On New Jersey Mornings continues. Have any travel plans or looking for a good travel idea? We're going to talk to Eric, the travel guy Hastings. He'll be on with all his great concepts. And meteorologist Mike Favetta returns with some milder conditions and sunshine for the Garden State. We'll take your calls too at 888-658-0234, 888-658-0234. You're watching On New Jersey Mornings. I'm Ken Rosato. We're coming back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to On New Jersey Mornings. I'm Ken Rosato at 7:45. We're taking your calls at 888-658-0234, 888-658-0234. Some sun, a little bit milder today for New Jersey, right? To meteorologist Mike Favetta with the Garden State forecast. Good morning, Mike.
Ken, it's so refreshing. It feels like spring here across New Jersey. A little bit of rain in the forecast, milder weather, but I think tomorrow is where we see those clouds and the chance of a few showers with this upper level system that swings on through. We've been talking about the polar vortex all last week, but that stays put up in Canada. We now enjoy a little bit of a southwesterly breeze pushing in, helping temperatures reach the 60s by the middle of this week. Then with that little chance of rain for Thursday that swings through New Jersey, we fast forward and move ahead to Saturday, and you'll start to see those shades of blue appear here on the map. These are the potentials for some possible snow showers and snow flurries that move on by with a quick moving system that primarily skirts northern New Jersey going on by through Saturday afternoon. It's one to watch, might give us a little chance of some snow by the end of this weekend, and really by by Saturday. I think the first half of the weekend as temperatures drop. Then for Sunday turns colder as temperatures cool off into the 30s. But overall, the drought is improving. Notice we had a lot of red on this map this time last week, showing that extreme drought moving all the way through central New Jersey. Now that's limited to the southernmost portion of the state, and the rest of the state's drought improving with all of that rain that we've seen, not just last week, but really the last few weeks, with the last 30 days seeing above average rainfall at certain stations. So that's good. Even our rainfall deficit only down to 1/4 of an inch in some parts of the state. So excellent news as we see the drought improve. Cooler than average weather expected for the first week of March, and that's really limited to the Northeast. The rest of the country sees cooler weather out west, and then going into the middle of March, or at least the first week, you see temperatures cooler and rainfall chances to be slightly higher than average. So weather that you'd expect for the first week of March, especially with temperatures cooling off and the better chances of rain. We'll take it, given how dry we started off the season, with that rain coming in for Thursday. Again, small chance of rain in northern New Jersey tomorrow. But I think all eyes are going to gravitate to Saturday, as might be winter's last hurrah with that cooler weather coming in, as next week turns milder still yet again. So the rest of this week staying milder in southern New Jersey. Best chance for rain on Thursday for you, and then likely just clouds, as most of that snow should stay to the north on Saturday afternoon. Looking like a spring-like forecast, Ken, just in time to welcome March's arrival.
Winter, I laugh on you. Ha ha ha. Ha. I just thought I would pass that in. All right. Thank you so much. I promise never to do that again to you. Thank you, Mike. It is now 31 degrees at 7:48. A little bit of traffic to tell you about. 287 northbound, just north of exit 12, Route 623 in Bridgewater Township. We do have a crash, and we have one right lane closed. Also, a brush fire on the Jersey Turnpike southbound north of Interchange 2. That's Route 322 in West Deptford Township, one right lane blocked. A crash on 295 northbound north of exit 24, Route 45 in Westville. A left lane and the shoulder closed, and about a 10-minute delay. Use caution through there. Still have that crash on the Jersey Turnpike Western Spur northbound of Interchange 15E by routes 1 and 9 in Newark. All lanes are open, but we do have delays through there. And we have that I-80 closure eastbound with the emergency construction at Sinkhole. That's at exit 34 in Wharton. All lanes are closed, everybody being detoured off. And of course, that's been causing problems for weeks now. 7:49, and while it may be a little milder today, as we heard Mike talking about, than in recent weeks, New Jersey is far from the Bahamas right now. Thinking about escaping to a warm weather getaway? Well, travel expert Eric, the Travel Guy Hastings of ericthetravelguy.com, that's Eric with a K, by the way, joins us with some great ideas. Good morning to you, Eric. Good to have you on.
Good morning, Ken. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Full disclosure, Eric and I are dear friends, and we know each other for quite some time. So we're not going to pretend like we're the host
No.
and the guest.
Yes, well,
do
but
that.
however, based on your last story, I'd like to be referred to as the parent that was in the room when the parent who gave birth to my children, if that's okay with you.
I do. So, well, I'm not going to say. There are some things I have to watch the decorum. I have to watch the decorum. I was going to say
That's
stuff.
right.
We're not off the air chatting.
No, we are not.
Let's get back to this parent unit at 7:50.
Yes.
Now, according to your site, you are on a mission. So what is your mission that you consider yourself on?
Well, I can't believe you read the site, Ken. I'm proud of you. Good for you. It's funny.
I just read it 30 seconds ago.
You and I have talked about this many times because you and I share a passion for travel, but it's true. I didn't really think I was going to do travel for the rest of my life as a full-time profession, but I am on a mission. I want people traveling longer, staying longer, traveling more often, and experiencing the potentially life-changing positive power of travel. And that is my mission. Yeah. That's why I do this all day long.
And just so that people know, Eric puts his money where his mouth is. Eric is a travel phenom. You love to go around the world. You videotape wherever you go. And I know it's truly a passion of yours. So what is one of the questions you get asked the most, Eric?
Wow, that's a great question. Let me think about that. People ask the usual things. Where should I go? They're always asking me where they should go. I think that's kind of funny because they think, but again, my idea of a perfect vacation is not the same as your idea. But nevertheless, they ask that. But what they really ask a lot about is the airlines. People love to hate the airlines. I use that term loosely, so be careful. But they love to complain about the airlines. So they always ask me things like how early should I get to the airport? And I think that's a really interesting topic because, well, do we have time to do this, Ken? Can I ask you something?
Sure.
What was the last flight you took?
In fact, it was January 1st, New Year's morning. I took a flight to Fort Lauderdale.
What time?
First flight out. I always get, whenever possible, I take the first flight out. So it was
Okay,
6 a.m.
what 6 a.m. Okay. What time is that? Is that your arrival time? Is that your departure time? Departure time, right?
Departure. Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Departure.
There's actually 4 times that I want people to understand associated with any flight that you take. Because I think there's a little bit of a misconception in that we are trained to talk about our departure time. But that's not a time that's very helpful to you, at least when getting to the airport, because that's only one of those times. The first time you should be aware of is not your departure time, your boarding time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's one of the things that people go, oh, right. Because the boarding time for a 6 a.m. flight is going to be, as you know, 5:15, 5:30.
5:20, yep.
Mm-hmm.
My
That's
husband,
right.
by the
And
way,
that's,
he's a fanatic about that. He always says,
yeah,
yeah, but we got to board at. And I always say,
that's
yeah,
right.
but the doors stay open until 10 minutes of. Or whatever. He's like,
No,
we're not
no,
going to wait till
but
10 minutes of and
no,
risk missing. This is the
no. And
perennial argument we get into.
no, I'm telling you, and I hate to side with him because you and I are friends, but he's a 100% right. And where that time really comes into play is your arrival at the airport. And that, that becomes, because if you think your flight's leaving at 6 and you go, well, I need to be there 90 minutes before my departure, that means you're going to get there at 4:30, when in fact you're already starting to close that window down, and who knows what security is going to be like. So the first thing I tell people is, please know what your boarding time is and plan accordingly.
Yeah, so you and my husband are buds. Okay, fine, I get it. But with us, in all fairness, because we have a condo, we don't travel with bags, we don't travel with children. So it's
Right.
just literally a carry-on, and we have
Yep.
Clear, and we just kind of rush. But you're right, there have been times when you get to the airport, especially Newark, where we go, and Clear is not open at certain times, or
That's right.
they're short-staffed, so they don't use the pre-check or something. So that does happen, and we have been caught off guard a few times. So yeah,
Well,
you should
again,
definitely
I think it's
assume it's
really,
not there.
I agree. And again, this really, you start to layer in your specific situation. But these 4 times, your boarding time, your departure time, remember, they will close those doors 15 minutes prior to your scheduled departure time. That means 5:45 a.m. and they will not open it for you. So try to remember that. So it's not exactly even your actual departure time. It's really that boarding time. And remember, then you get into the flight time. The flight time is wheels up to wheels down. That's especially helpful with nervous flyers. I always remind them, they go, look, if you break down your flight, it takes 30 minutes to go basically from the ground to your cruising altitude, and then 30 minutes to get back down, essentially. So that may help you a little bit with, why is it a little bumpy on the way up? Why is it a little bumpy on the way down? And then your 4th time is your arrival time. So those are the 4 times. So there you go.
Yeah, if you ever look at flight radar, you'll see it's like a corkscrew, right? The plane just goes in circles up, up, up until it gets to at least 15, 20,000 feet, or it has to get to at least 10,000. Once it gets to at least 10,000, then it can start to head in its direction. But yeah, it just keeps going round and round and round.
Well, and again, you talk about, that's one of the things that I am a rule follower just in general. Like, I think you should play by the rules. I don't think there should be, whatever. So that's another thing I remind people to do. Keep your seatbelt on when you are seated on an airplane, period. And I'm not talking about the, going up and coming back down. That's a given. But I'm talking about in flight. When we're at cruising altitude, they've turned the seatbelt sign off. Do you think that the flight crew takes their seatbelts off when they're on the flight deck? They do not. Even when they turn the sign off, they don't.
Because if you hit some turbulence, That's all you need is turbulence. Your head will hit the ceiling full speed. And we've had cases where people they have to do an emergency landing because people get severely injured. You always have to
Yeah.
assume at any second you're going to hit that turbulence. I always
Yeah.
keep it on. I keep it on tight. You have to assume. And that's why it bothers me when you have lap children and people who have tons of clutter in front of them, because if we hit that turbulence, everything's going to go flying, including your child. It really
That's
is
right.
concerning when I see that. You have to assume that at any second that's going to happen. Now, to speak of the negative, now, why does it seem of late we keep hearing about plane crashes? Is it truly that there are more, or we're just really
No.
hearing about the cluster because media loves to report things in clusters?
Well, again, I don't remember the last time I saw a report about a plane landing safely. As a matter of fact,
Right.
150 planes just landed during this interview. I mean, if you look at the numbers, Google it sometime just for fun. I don't think people are really aware. Look, there's going to be 45,000 flights that are going to take off and land safely in this country today. You're going to move around 3 million people today, and those planes land safely. And even when they don't, look at what happened in Toronto.
Toronto, yeah.
The fact that flight crew got all 80 of those folks off that plane and nobody perished, to my recollection, as of today,
Right.
is frankly remarkable. Because accidents do happen, so it's a little on our radar screen at this moment. But this too, that's like saying, the celebrities always die in threes. You always hear one,
Right.
then there's two, then there's this. It's the same kind of concept. But no,
it's top of mind. And by the way, several of the other crashes that we've talked about, they were small planes in areas where they weren't manned by air traffic control, and it was supposed to be visual, where the small planes were supposed to be watching each other. And yet that got reported as a crash, as if it was a major commercial jet at a major airport. And that's why people conflate that. So that's part of the problem. Right. Because because media likes to report it.
And again, I sat next to a nervous flyer just recently, and she was, visibly a little shaken. And I said, do you know how long this flight is? And she said, no. I said, because the captain came on and said, it's 2 hours and 12 minutes. I said, I'll tell you what. So why don't you get your phone out and set a timer? Right. When we leave the ground, set your phone to timer and watch. We'll land within 2 minutes, 1 minute of that time. There is nothing left to chance up there. There's system after redundant system after redundant system, things like TCAS, the traffic collision avoidance system, things like that. I mean, again, I'd fly any day, no problem.
Yeah, like TCAS, where the two planes communicate with each other in an area where there is no air traffic, because there are parts, right? If they're over the Atlantic and whatnot, you need TCAS. The two planes will talk to each other, and the planes will make the decision electronically who gets to go at what altitude so that they don't collide. So it is. That's why when something does happen, it's so weird, because electronically, it's almost an impossibility, but we don't want to say never. But listen, with about 30 seconds left, I want to ask you about itineraries. You love to share itineraries and cruises.
I love
3 days. What can you tell us about it?
Well, I can tell you in 30 seconds, make sure you are actually going on the vacation that you want to go on. I like mixing up on the beaten path versus off the beaten path. I do like to go where the locals go, but I also like to go and experience things that place is known for. And a lot of times that's on the beaten path. So the itineraries that I do, we talk a lot about that. It's a nice balance between the two.
All right, there he is, Eric the Travel Guy Hastings of ericthetravelguy.com. That's Eric with a K.
That's right.
Check out his website. Lots of fun stuff. See some of the locations he's been to and all the great video from around the world. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us this morning on ONNJ Mornings.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ken.
We'll talk to you soon, bud. It is now 8 o'clock. When we come back, meteorologist Mike Pavetta says we're going to see some sun, a little bit milder, maybe a little rain tomorrow. He'll have the full Garden State forecast, and we'll continue to take your calls at 888-658-0234. You are watching ONNJ Mornings, streamed on ONNJ.com, Roku, Fire TV, News On, Samsung TV Plus, Apple TV, YouTube, Facebook, and X, and we're now live on Rumble and Twitch. Just go to twitch.tv/OnNJ. We're coming right back. Good morning, it's 8:02. Welcome to ONNJ Mornings. I'm Ken Rosato, taking your calls at 888-658-0234. 888-658-0234. In the meantime, some sun today, milder conditions, maybe a little rain tomorrow. Let's head to meteorologist Mike Favetta with a check of the Garden State forecast. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Ken. The sun's been up for almost an hour and a half, and we are enjoying that milder feel, almost at 40 right now in Newark, teetering on that with 39 degrees, 38 in Long Branch, cooler a little further south over toward LBI, but with a light breeze coming off of the chilly ocean. These wind gusts between 3 and 7 miles per hour, not too bad. It's a nice way to start the day. Even the wind chill only subtracting a few degrees, making it feel like it's around freezing this morning. So with the air temperature about 6 degrees warmer than this time yesterday, this is a good trend, and we'll kind of keep stepping in this positive direction, adding a few degrees each and every day as the clouds from last night now clearing out, bringing back a lot of sun throughout today, and that clear sky this morning helping us springboard into the 40s, maybe up around 50 in some spots by the end of the day. It'll feel really nice. With the winds coming in from the south and starting to freshen up a bit, we will get to 50 over in Toms River, 53 in Mount Holly, and 54 in Trenton. And then we hang on to those temperatures into this evening because there's more moisture in the air, and that tends to delay the cool down effect into the late evening hours. With tomorrow, starting off with a bit more clouds, I think we'll see some showers arrive by the afternoon and evening, specifically 195 and north. So it'll be a predominantly northern New Jersey light rain tomorrow afternoon and evening that clears out by the nighttime, bringing back even milder weather by Wednesday, and temperatures could hold in the 50s yet again by Wednesday afternoon. So a very pleasant feel taking us into the middle of the week until more rain comes at us by Thursday, and that'll be a little more significant. So mostly cloudy tomorrow, but still holding on to the 50s for Wednesday. Milder again on Thursday with rain that takes over to wrap up the middle of the week, but we've got some colder weather and the potential for some snow that could arrive as soon as Saturday. We'll tell you more about that with another check of the forecast coming up.
You know what? Your new nickname is Buzzkill. That's what it is.
Buzzkill.
Buzzkill Mike. With the snow. Here I'm thinking spring thoughts, and then you have to mention the S word.
But it's the Matto
All right.
Marzo. It's the weather that just kind of goes crazy every few days in March, and that's what we're going to start to see.
And like my father's always said, and I like to say, at least in March, if you do get a little snow, it'll be milder the next day, so it doesn't last as opposed to getting snow in November, where it lasts the whole darn winter. All right, Mike, we'll check back with you. Thank you so much, sir. It is now 31 degrees at 8:05. And in terms of traffic, we have a crash on 295 northbound, just north of exit 24, which is Route 45 in Westville. The left shoulder is closed with 10-minute delays through there. We have a brush fire on the Turnpike southbound, just north of US 322, which is interchange 2 in West Deptford Township, one right lane block. Emergency construction and a sinkhole repair still going on I-80 eastbound. That's exit 34, Route 15 in Wharton. All lanes closed and everybody is being detoured. 5 now, a new YouGov survey reveals a striking divide in Americans' trust in the media and the Trump administration when it comes to delivering the facts fully, accurately, and fairly. With only 29% of Americans expressing significant trust in the media, that's a sharp decline from years past, but yet 44% place more faith in Donald Trump's administration. So questions of bias, tone, credibility, all front and center. The survey also finds that 4 in 10 Americans believe the media is rooting for Trump to fail. I'm shocked it's only 4 in 10, while perceptions of overly negative coverage continue to grow. Joining us now to break down these findings is Jeanette Hoffman, a Republican strategist and president of Marathon Communications. Jeanette, thank you for being with us this morning. Good to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me, Ken.
Now, are you as stunned as I am that only 4 in 10 Americans believe that the media wants Trump to fail? I think it's 11. I think 11 in 10 Americans think. I have never, look, I worked in mainstream media. I worked at ABC. I worked even at Fox. I worked at CBS and years ago at NBC. Literally, the mindset in all the newsrooms, it's a bunch of 20-something left-wingers from the Upper West Side who all hate the right. They hate Trump. You try to even suggest one story that's positive for Republicans, it doesn't get on. That's just the reality. So the idea that only 4 in 10 Americans think that the media is rooting against Trump is a shocker. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, well, listen, I'm not surprised that almost half the country thinks that the media is rooting against Trump. If you look at some of the words and some of the phrases that come out in some of the media stories we're looking at, especially on the editorial board side of some of these major media outlets, you see words like dictator, threat to democracy, autocrat, oligarch, all these very extreme words, extreme
You
circumstances
forgot
to
Nazi.
describe. No, yes, that one too, to describe Trump's election. And, listen, the American public is not stupid. They've been here before. They were present under Trump's first term. They know the world is not ending. Also, President Trump's administration is very transparent. Unlike the Biden administration, they actually hold press conferences. President Trump talks to the media. So the American people see firsthand the president addressing them. They see firsthand him talking to the public. So they know, they can see it with their own eyes that what the press is saying about the world ending under the Trump administration, frankly, is not true. So, you Justin saying 11 out of 10 Americans, but I think it's probably about half the country believes that Trump is just not getting a fair shake under the current media system.
But it's amazing though, because if you look back 4.5 years, remember Trump left office with only 34% approval rating, and now he's at 53%. In some cases, some polls as high as 60%. And that is in spite of literally to the mainstream media outlet, basically bashing him at every opportunity. And I think so much of that has to do with the growth of outlets like this and social media, because before people didn't really have an option except for Fox News and maybe some talk radio. But younger people aren't listening to talk radio; they're listening to podcasts. And the likes of a Joe Rogan, who this was a guy who was a Bernie Sanders bro, and now he is a pro-Trumper. So how much of a play do you think that has to do with it? The fact that the landscape of media is changing.
Yeah, 100% Ken. And like you said, coming into his first term in office, his second term in office, Trump's approval ratings are 10 points higher than he was coming into 2017 in his first term. And as you said, the mainstream media seems to be against him. But we are now getting our news from a lot of different sources, streaming channels such as this one, podcasts, as you mentioned, the Joe Rogan podcast, and social media. The majority of Americans now get their news from social media, whether that be X, TikTok, YouTube, all different streaming apparatus. But that's where people, and they're finding shows like this. They're finding different sources of media that aren't going to be the MSNBCs, the CNNs of the world. And as a result, the ratings of places like MSNBC are just basically in the toilet. You saw the news this week that Joy Reid is having her show canceled, that they're having a huge shakeup at MSNBC, frankly, because no one's watching them anymore. No one wants to hear left-wing propaganda that is predictably against President Trump and predictably against Republicans. So that's what we're seeing here. Americans are looking to get their news from more unbiased sources, and they're seeking out different ways to hear about the truth.
Jeanette, that you say that, I'm tired of hearing the equivocators who say, well, you have the Fox on the right and MSNBC on the left, and they're all full of baloney and they're all extreme and they all lie. Okay, here's the reality. MSNBC has talked about Nazis and existential threat to democracy, and democracy as we know it was going to end if Trump was elected, and he was going to go arrest all these people and blah, 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 on and on it went. None of it came to pass. It didn't come to pass when he was in his first term. It has not come to pass in his second term. So literally, they have been proven false. They've been proven liars. However, when you look at Fox, practically everything that you hear on Fox or other right-wing news sources, if it hasn't happened yet, it will come to pass. And it always ends up coming to pass within 2, 3, 4 months. Perfect example, the Biden laptop, okay? Everyone said it's just propaganda, it's a lie, it doesn't exist. It's 100% true. The FBI had the laptop, but kept it quiet. And as the FBI, literally, while they had it, they just sat there as the right was trying to say it's true and the left was saying it was propaganda, and they just kept their mouths shut because Biden controlled them. The Justice Department was thoroughly corrupt under Biden, but the left-wing media was just in the pocket. They worked hand in hand. It was total corruption. When the right tried to say that, we were called partisan hacks. Well, I'm sorry, but look what came to pass. So this is why Fox has 4, 5, 6 times the viewers that any of the left-wing channels have, because they've proven that everything that they say turns out, whereas on the left, it just isn't the case. And the survey, by the
Yeah,
way, shows,
100%.
I just want to hit because I'm the one ranting, and I apologize. This survey shows a
It's okay.
partisan gap. I'm a good ranter. My husband will tell you. 35% of Republicans have no trust in the media at all, compared to just 13% of Democrats. So what does that say to you? That is it just that Republicans had their eyes open, or that Democrats just don't and they're asleep?
Well, I would just say that a lot of the media outlets, the mainstream cable TV news networks, have been traditionally geared towards liberal thought and democratic policy. So, Democrats, I think, mostly have been okay with that, and Republicans haven't. And I think independents are now coming around to the fact, to your point, that Fox News and other, more right wing media outlets are topping the charts, and others such as MSNBC and CNN are failing. And MSNBC really is dropping like a stone and really having a hard time. They have to shake up the entire network. Rachel Maddow, who used to be on every night, is only getting, I think, Monday nights in terms of her show. But going back to your point of, everyone said that the laptop was disinformation. It was to the point where the New York Post wrote a credible story on Hunter Biden's laptop, and it was banned from Twitter. This was before
Mhm.
Elon Musk obviously bought it, but the Biden administration was censoring social media at the time. So, I mean, there's a lot to that. And I think Americans are now waking up and wanting to make sure that our media is unbiased. And if they feel like, there is bias in it, they have a lot more places to go. They have a lot more media outlets to tune into. It's not just a few cable channels on television to get their political and their policy news from, to your point earlier.
And one of the more eye-catching findings is that 43% of Americans, including nearly three-quarters of Republicans, believe the media actively wants Trump to fail. Now, do you think that's a fair perception, or do you think that it's actually a higher percentage, and we're not hearing it? Because literally, when you look at 7 stories done on Trump in quote unquote mainstream media, 7 out of 7 stories will be negative, and then any story on the left is a positive story. The view of balance on a network like NBC is having 7 liberals on a panel and 1 lone Republican, or on CNN, their nightly show. That's exactly what they have. They have like 6 Democrats, woke Democrats, and then 1 Republican. And amazingly, that 1 Republican holds his own
Yeah.
miraculously. But then they claim that they're unbiased. How do you claim you're unbiased in that case?
Yeah, and it's with a number of policies. It's not just with President Trump. It's with the way they handle the Israel crisis with October 7th, hostages being murdered. They're saying, hostages were found dead. No, they were murdered, right? The way the New York Times and some other groups, media outlets write some of these stories, it's clearly showing their policy bias. And it's not just with President Trump. It's with all policy biases. And, I think it's become more clear since we have social media, since we have other ways to expose this, and people are not just, picking up in one or two or three newspapers and tuning into 1 or 2 or 3 channels. It's encouraging to see polls like this that show Americans are fully understanding what is happening out there.
Well, Jeanette, clearly you're a Republican strategist and a successful one, and you still have the left. They are not just rolling over and dying, if you will, and I mean that hypothetically dying, not in real life. Let me make that clear. But with the clear sense of frustration that many on the right still have, what's your advice to Republicans and the Trump team on how to navigate the landscape as they move forward? I mean, is the media still going to be an obstacle for them, or do you think they should just keep moving forward with these 2-hour news conferences where they can speak directly to the public?
Yeah, I think Republicans are doing quite well right now. I would argue it's the Democrats that have a huge problem. They can't seem to find a message. The Biden administration failed their party and failed Americans in terms of immigration, inflation, and the economy. Republicans have been doing quite well and speaking clearly and putting, the truth out there, putting a lot of messages out there. Listen, sometimes President Trump says things and then says something different the other day. So I think that gets the media in a tizzy. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing, frankly, because it keeps keeps everyone on their toes. But I think, listen, the more that Republicans can speak directly to the media, I see that going on in New Jersey more often every day, that our New Jersey legislators are fighting back against some of these awful, expensive Democratic policies of raising taxes, raising energy rates. Republicans just have to be loud. They have to be, the loudest voice in the room, and they have to speak clearly to the American public. Whether, if they're not getting coverage by the media, then they need to talk, directly to the public through social media.
All right. Jeanette Hoffman, Republican strategist, president of Marathon Communications. Please don't be a stranger. We love when you're on. Come back often. Thanks for being on this
Great.
morning.
Thanks so much
All
for
right.
having
Have
me,
a great
Ken.
day.
I'll talk to you soon.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
You bet. Thank you. It is 32 degrees when On New Jersey Mornings continues. Meteorologist Mike Pavetta says a little bit of sunshine today, maybe a little rain tomorrow, but milder. Highs in the upper 40s. We're going to take your calls at 888-658-0234. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to On New Jersey Mornings. I'm Ken Rosato, and even 32 degrees at 8:15, and we go to make that 8:19. Excuse me, I'm rolling late. 19. Mike Favetta, this is the way I was going to school as a kid. It's like, but teacher, it's 8:15. No, it's 8:19. You're late. Sit down and shut up. There you go. Good morning to you, sir. How's that Garden State forecast looking?
Fashionably late, kind of like how spring is rolling around, a little fashionably late, with a little throwback to winter this weekend. We enjoy the milder weather that comes in throughout today. Sunny and 54 degrees across parts of New Jersey. A very pleasant forecast this afternoon. A light breeze coming off out of the south. You will feel the chill when you step outdoors, especially along the beachfront neighborhoods this afternoon, because that water is still chilly, and with the wind coming off of the water, it'll transfer over to the shoreline. But with that, we have some clouds returning tonight, meaning for a little bit of a gray start tomorrow, and then some rain that moves in tomorrow afternoon in time for the evening rush. It's a weak moving system, and if it were colder, it would be snow. So we're enjoying the fact that it's milder. The milder feel takes over as well for Wednesday with another round of pleasantly mild air. And then for Thursday, as our highs again top out in the 50s, we have the next chance for some rain that comes in, giving us some more wet weather. So here's the system for later on tonight and to tomorrow. Follows along with the jet stream, delivering a light round of rain to northern New Jersey tomorrow, but mostly clouds for the better part of the day. So enjoy the sunshine today, bring back the clouds tomorrow. Little light rain comes in northern New Jersey tomorrow evening, and then that leaves, giving us another round of dry weather for Wednesday. Air quality is a little bit lower today, and the reason for that is kind of the stagnant air that we've had throughout yesterday and today. There's also more humidity to the air, so it's what you'd naturally expect this time of year, with temperatures today climbing into the mid-50s from Matawan to Long Branch, even over in Point Pleasant. 50 for you, 55 down in Fort Dix. So a really pleasant way to enjoy the afternoon. Now, by Thursday, we have our next round of rain that comes in, moving across New Jersey by later on in the day. That clears out for a lovely sunny day on Friday. But notice some shades of blue return by Saturday. And we know that color all too well. Means a little bit of snow back in the picture by Saturday midday into the afternoon. It's one to watch. Could give us another light round of snow in northern New Jersey, but it just popped up this morning. So we'll have a few days to watch it, and it doesn't look to be anything super impressive, given that it follows the course of a clipper system, which only gives us 1 to 2 inches at the absolute worst. And again, I think we won't even get that. 47 as the high on Saturday, but again, temperatures fall throughout the day, bringing down temperatures to 39 by Sunday. There's a cool weekend ahead, but a milder week next week. It'll feel very pleasant for the first week of March. We'll tell you more about that coming up with an extended check of your forecast in just a few minutes, Ken.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. It is 8:22 now, 32.3 degrees to be specific. And we do have a little bit of traffic to tell you about before we get to our tech expert, Fisher, who's standing by. 295 northbound, we have a crash just north of exit 24, Route 45 in Westville. The left shoulder is closed. We have 10-minute delays. We have a crash on the Atlantic City Expressway eastbound west of the Frank S. Farley Service Plaza in Hamilton Township. A left lane is closed. Move over for the emergency vehicles. We have emergency construction still on that sinkhole on I-80 eastbound at exit 34, Route 15 in Wharton. All lanes closed and everybody is being detoured. It's 8:23 now, and joining us to talk about tech stories. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Is our tech expert Fisher, a brand and digital strategist, can be found on X, Threads, and Instagram with username @Fisher, and through his website, fisher.media. Good morning, Fisher. 2 weeks ago, we discussed the upcoming releases of new Apple products. A new iPhone was confirmed. What could you tell us about that?
Yeah, when we talked 2 weeks ago, it was just mere rumors. We were talking about a new iPhone. We were talking about new Power Beats and I think a MacBook Air. And we were also, I was kind of stipulating that they weren't even going to do an event. They were going to just quietly roll it out because that's typically what they do. They did do an event and they only rolled out the iPhone. Now, we're used to seeing the more economical iPhones, the iPhone SEs that started rolling out in 2016. They rolled this out. They called it the iPhone 16e. It's a very economical phone. Starts at $599. It's available now, so you could go to apple.com. You can go to any of your cellular companies and upgrade your phone. They'll start shipping on February 28th, and it's really packed with a lot of great stuff. A lot of stuff brought it in line with the current iPhone 16 that's out there now. It has the A18 chip, which is in the iPhone 16. The screen, 6.1 inches. Battery life is substantially improved, over 26 hours of battery life watching videos, which is amazing. It starts with 128 gigabyte of storage, goes all the way up to 512 gigabyte, 8 gig RAM, 48 megapixel camera. And what's really impressive is Face ID, and that effectively kills the home button. If you remember your iPods or earlier iPhones, you had the button that you push to get yourself back out to the home screen. That is officially gone, and it's gone from all Apple devices. So a lot of great stuff with this phone.
How do you get back to the home then? Is there it's just the touch screen in the same spot?
Yep, absolutely. And so there's no thumbprint reader at all either. So it's all Face ID, or you can use a numeric pin to get into your phone.
Really? So away with the thumb. You would think they could just, still have that option on Android. You could use Face ID or thumb.
Yeah, they've been working. And they are working to get that within the screen. They want to do it a more effective way. I know from working with Android, sometimes it can get a little dicey. It doesn't read your thumbprint 100%. Right. So Apple will have the Touch ID, but just not in the typical home button that they have it now, or had it now.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because it depends on the app. Some apps, I guess they just look for certain lines in your print. So some apps, the second you touch a screen, goes right through. Other apps, you have to do it 15 times, and it's annoying. So I'm with you. I'm glad Apple, as always, gets 10 steps ahead of Android, and then Android comes back and tries to one-up them. You mentioned Apple Intelligence. The Wall Street Journal had an article last week discussing the increase in spending being done for artificial intelligence in general. So why does it look like just recently there's an uptick in that?
Yeah, a lot of things have been going on, and I think we kind of got the attention when China rolled out DeepSeek. We had talked about that a couple of weeks ago. DeepSeek was China's version of ChatGPT and Grok and all of our American-made AI. And they claimed that they could do it for $6 million, and it was really, a lot of red flags, and it all proved to be not as true as advertised. So yeah, we're spending a lot of money, A, because of competition from overseas, B, because they don't know where the demand's going to be. So Google, Microsoft, Meta, they're collectively planning on spending at least $215 billion on capital expenditures. That's what the Wall Street Journal is reporting. Much of that for AI data centers. And that's just in 2025. And that is a 45% increase over their spending from last year. Just today, Apple announced that it was planning on bringing a 250,000 square foot factory in Texas online by 2026 to build AI servers. They're also going to add about 20,000 research and development jobs across the United States. In Detroit, they are going to build an Apple manufacturing academy. But the problem is it's sort of the cart before the horse, because with AI, we have our favorite assistants. And in fact, last week I was calling you from my car, and I said, I won't say it because I don't want to trigger it for everybody, but I said, call Ken Rosato. And it asked me, what would you like to know about Ken Rosato? And I snarkily and maybe inappropriately said, I'd like to know if you'd answer the phone. And it's just because these assistants are not the best, right? So with AI, you can upload a picture and say, here's my headshot. Could you please put me in 3 different suits, one, black, blue, and gray, for a headshot that I want to use for LinkedIn, or I want to send with a resume. And with AI also, I mean, you and I are talking and, we have scripts and teleprompters and things of that sort. But as human beings, you're able to adapt and you're able to come up with questions and have conversations. AI needs to get to that point, especially when you start rolling it out with chatbots, when governments are using it for intelligence. You need to have that real-time decision making. AI is not, it's not just making pictures and putting you in 3 different suits. It's not a search engine. AI will be injected into everything that we do. And so companies really need to ramp up, but also keep in mind of where does that demand kind of push back. I'm a tech guy, so I'm more likely to download all the apps and get the new Grok 3, from X, and mess around with it. But, are you, is my mom, it's kind of debatable. So, are you going
Like how you
to
lump me in with your mom.
Yeah, no, it was a general statement. It was just a general statement. I was spanning the demographics, but yeah, I mean, it's eventually going to be so ingrained in the stuff that we use. It's not going to be as I'm going to download an app, I'm going to ask it a question. It is going to be involved in everything that we do. But there's a lot of investment, and it's amazing.
So let me ask you this, because I notice what's happening with a lot of the AI is it's becoming specialized. Will each AI eventually do everything, or do you think it's going to go into a specific market? So you'll have an AI that specifically writes scripts, an AI that does the artwork, and do you see which direction do you see it heading in?
It's heading in, and if you download again XAI, which is X, Elon Musk's social media company, X has just rolled out Grok 3, ChatGPT. They're all going for that kind of wide berth where you go to one place. Google will have its own that's injected in Google search, all their products. If you have Gmail, you open it up, you might have seen in the past couple of weeks, there's some AI assistants in there. It is definitely going to be widespread there, because they have to. They can't have you download an app for this and go here for that. You have to expect it in the same way that, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you couldn't imagine turning on a light in your house by just saying, turn on the living room, right? But now if it doesn't happen, you're turn on the living, I mean, you get louder and speaking to it. So it has to be everywhere. And you can't expect it to be specialized. It's going to be everywhere, whether it's your television or your computers, or
And
your
so
watch.
it's not. It's going to be so basically everything will offer AI, and all the AI will be able to do everything. So it's not like only one will survive at the end, because they're not really financially competing. It's the whole brand has to have AI, or else the brand itself may not survive 5 years from now. So every major Google and X and search engines and social media, they all have to have AI integrated. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And with Apple, I mean, what they're really doing, I mean, that they're going to spend $500 billion in the United States over the next 4 years. Apple is going to do that. And that's everything from, they're going to use it for filming television shows, movies for its Apple TV service. They're going to use it for you know who sitting on my desk and what's on your phone for your car, because Apple CarPlay is now integrated in newer versions of cars into the entire dash. And again, that's simple tasks of knowing that you're not home, and it can run your vacuum, right? Your smart vacuum, to doing more complex things. And again, not just companies like Apple and Microsoft and Google, but venture capitalists, governments are investing in it. So the AI and really, as I've talked about in the past and met with people to kind of find out what their wants and needs about it are, is don't limit yourself of what you think it can do. It literally will get to a point of being able to do anything. Now, obviously, you'll pay for it, but it will be unlimited of what you think it could do. We could sit here and go all day of what the possibilities are.
Yes. It's just amazing to see, even in a year, how far it's come. On New Jersey tech expert Fisher, brand and digital strategist, found on X, Threads, and Instagram with username @Fisher, and through his website, fisher.media. And by the way, the reference to on his desk, he can't say it out loud because it's his dog. And if he says his name, the dog will bark. So that's what he's talking about. Thank you.
Get mentioned, right?
All right, there you go. Thank you for joining us, sir. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thanks.
All right,
Ken.
it's 8:30. You bet. It is 8:33 right now. And we are going to bypass a break right now because we have a senator standing by right now on the phone for us. And I know he's not feeling well. And in spite of the fact that he's under the weather, he was nice enough to come on this morning. So at 8:33, let's just talk about this. With just days to go before Governor Phil Murphy unveils his 8th and final budget proposal, tensions are rising in Trenton. Senate Republicans are drawing a line in the sand, threatening legal action if income tax revenue is once again used for what they call pork barrel spending. Now, in a sharply worded letter to the governor, they argue the state constitution mandates these funds be used exclusively for property tax relief based on a clear formula, not political favoritism. We're being joined now by New Jersey State Senator Declan O'Scanlan on the phone to unpack this escalating showdown. Senator, I know you're not feeling 100%, so I can't thank you enough for getting up early in the morning and being with us. Welcome.
It's not a problem at all. It's part of the job. And look, I'm just battling the cold that everyone else is. So, and I think I'm on the tail end of it. But it's brutal out there, and I think every one of us has had something this season. So. But happy to be on with you. These are important issues.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it sure is important. Let's start with the heart of the issue. Your letter says that Governor Murphy has violated the New Jersey Constitution by diverting income tax revenue to special projects instead of property tax relief. And we're so overtaxed in this state to begin with. So can you explain what specific actions in this past budget, if you will, led you to this point?
Well, the practice of diverting money from the Property Tax Relief Fund, which was, according to our Constitution, was created to make sure that income tax revenue in New Jersey wasn't squandered or wasn't just manipulated or given to the powerful and the and the connected. And it clearly laid out that the money collected had to be distributed based on a formula, which implies that everyone or every municipality or every school would have the ability to compete for the money on an even playing field. That hasn't happened, and the misuse and diversion away from formula aid has exploded in the last few years. The governor included in his budget last year, right out of the gate, $100 million of diverted funds. The legislature doubled down, and the ending budget ended up with over $300 million of it. That's got to stop. It is expanded dramatically under this governor and legislative leadership.
So now, in that, you talked about certain things that crossed the line in the budget that led to that. What are some of those expenses, if you will, that led to that specifically, and why doesn't it fit the Constitution?
We've outlined hundreds of millions in pork, and really, if you look at even other categories that aren't diverted funds, you're north of $1 billion in pork in every budget in the last few years. That is a crazy number, and it's completely unsustainable. But look, it's a French Arts Museum here. It's a luxury sports stadium that costs hundreds of millions of dollars there, and all of these things are tied to some of the most powerful legislators out there. I get that when you're the majority, there's some power that comes with that, but it doesn't allow you to abuse and violate the Constitution. and divert these monies without a second thought. That cannot continue to happen.
Yeah, and the governor's office is, of course, pushing back, saying the budget structure is in line with what both Democratic and Republican governors have done for decades. So, how do you respond to that defense, and what makes this administration's approach different in your view?
Much worse. And you did see an occasional, pretty small number here and there in previous governors' budgets. It's exploded under this administration, and certainly with other money, all the other categories of pork have exploded to north of $1 billion. This hasn't happened in decades. It's a big number, and certainly just the diversions from the property tax relief fund that we've identified, over 300 million. That's a huge increase from previous administrations.
That is something. And your letter threatens litigation if the pattern continues in the upcoming budget. So what would that lawsuit look like, and who would you represent, and what kind of outcomes are you hoping to achieve from that?
We would work to put together a number of the aggrieved entities, school systems, municipalities. You see hundreds of millions of dollars that are given out based on no formula whatsoever, based simply on the powerful and the connected. You see us adhering to, and this is outside the issue we're talking about right now, but it's still significant. You see the school funding formula. It's over 20 years old. That's a disaster. I mean, it was outdated 10 years ago, and we're still slavishly following it, doling out billions of increased dollars in aid to schools that the governor brags about to a very few select school systems, leaving hundreds of other districts. We have too many, but we have 600 school districts under around half of them haven't kept up with inflation with their aid, and more than 100 have actually had it slashed, and they're hurting. They're canceling extracurricular activities. They're increasing class sizes. They're a mess. Several of them are probably close to bankruptcy. It really is a disaster, and this administration has done nothing to fix that. We could have done all of that, reworked the school funding formula, and probably slashed $1 billion, $1.5 billion of our structural deficit, which is over $4 billion. It's a mess. It's a ticking time bomb, and we'll probably see more of it tomorrow when the governor announces his budget with a rosy smile on his face. We'll be here to tell the truth about it.
Senator, you talked about that formula again, and tax relief is supposed to come, a property tax relief through a formula. But you're saying that it's sort of eroded over time. So why do you think the requirement has been ignored for so long, and why enforce it now? Are you just worried that it's just going to keep sliding away to the point that it'll be totally irrelevant?
Well, let me reiterate it. It was not a slow and gradual increase. It dramatically increased under this administration. There were, minor questionable sidesteps of the formula in the past, but this administration ballooned that. Again, last year in the governor's budget, he specifically called for $100 million, over $100 million of abuses of that formula requirement. So it's increased dramatically over just the past few years. So that's why it's time now to step up and push back. So just to be clear on that, there's if you don't use a formula as the Constitution requires, and abide by the spirit of the law and the intent that called for adding in the Constitution that you need a formula and you should dole this money out according to a formula, you really will start to erode faith in government across the board, from taxpayers and from the people operating our municipalities and our schools. Exactly. Why have it all?
Right. That makes sense. And if one person can deviate from it, then the next one will use that as the excuse to keep deviating. And then there's no point. Just like the Constitution itself, the federal and the state Constitution. Liberals love to just say that liberals look at the United States Constitution as just an obstacle that should be avoided. It's like, no, this is the foundation of our country. This is the policy with which we rule our country. And the whole point is to have minimal government interference. We're supposed to be free. That's the whole point. They forget, or they conveniently don't want to acknowledge that the Constitution is supposed to limit government from us. It's not supposed to tell us how we have to live our lives. But that's the difference between liberals and
That's right.
conservatives. Finally, if you had the governor in front of you right now, and you had your hands tied behind your back, of course, what would your message be to him as I'm kidding, as he finalizes his proposal, and what would you be watching for when he unveils that proposal?
Well, the overarching budget deficit of over $4 billion is stunning, and it's a real ticking time bomb. So the very first thing I would say to the governor is, what are you doing to address this? And are you going to finally accept we Republicans in the Senate and the Assembly have for years, particularly I'll give credit to the Senate, come up with comprehensive alternatives that would get this spending train in order and really put New Jersey on a sound fiscal footing going forward. That has not happened. Between the governor's office and the Democrat legislative leadership, we've created this ticking time bomb of over $4 billion, approaching $4.5 billion structural deficit. And are we going to finally start to get that under control? Now, look, unfortunately, some things were completely squandered. Some potential options that could have saved billions of dollars that don't exist anymore. For instance, reworking the school funding formula before fully implementing it. The governor brags about that, and that is one of his biggest mistakes. We should have reworked the school funding formula rather than fully implementing it, because we just don't have that option anymore. So it's going to make it much harder on the next governor, whoever he, she may be, on either side of the aisle, to fix this mess. I would be, getting back to your question, my answer to that would be, Governor, are you going to finally start to go in the other direction in your last year's budget and begin even incrementally to set us up for success rather than failure? I highly doubt the answer to that would be yes.
Yeah, I am amazed, and I scratch my head looking at all these liberal-run states that received tens of billions of dollars during the pandemic, and all of that money just got squandered. It all just disappeared. A lot of people's pockets got lined, as you knew would be the case, as conservatives said would be the case, and they denied it. All that money, and of course the hundreds of billions, nearly $1 trillion that was supposed to eliminate our inflation, the Inflation Reduction Act, which was nothing more than a big leftist squandering, money laundering scheme, clearly. And finally, of course, that's just my little opinion. Senator, property taxes, of course, and this I will let you go with, so you can go rest your voice. Property taxes are, of course, the perennial issue in New Jersey. And by the way, I live part-time here and part-time in Florida. Our property taxes in Florida nowhere near what they are here. No income taxes in Florida, yet they still have all the services that we have in New Jersey. So somehow they're able to, oh, by the way, and the schools have better outcomes and better graduation rates now in Florida than in New Jersey for less money. And there are plenty of minorities and plenty of people who speak different languages. So we don't have an excuse here for the lack of performance in New Jersey anymore. If you succeed in redirecting the funds, how do you see that making a real difference for taxpayers?
Well, you're right. The overarching theme here is that, and it's kind of a mantra of Democrats in blue states. Oh, well, and as the governor said, if taxes are issued, maybe this isn't your state. They claim that we have better services. They claim we have better outcomes in education and other things. And that is absolutely never has been true, but it's even less true today than it was 7 years ago when the governor took office. And you're absolutely right about the federal dollars. The Inflation Reduction Act was the exact opposite. It actually increased inflation. And much of that money was squandered. But even bigger here, especially in New Jersey, the opportunity was squandered. We could use the breathing room of that federal money to fix our budget, to fix our structural deficit, and we completely squandered it. Because here we are with over almost $4.5 billion structural deficit, and it's a shame, and it will never happen again. That federal largesse, it's impossible for it to happen again because the federal government is now deeply, deeply in debt. The opportunity to rework our school funding formula, all of that are squandered opportunities. I've said the Murphy administration is going to be known as the administration of squandered opportunities. Mark my words, that is going to be exactly true.
And it's amazing because he comes from such a business background. You would think he could run the state like a business, but clearly that's not the case because he wants to take care of his left-wing friends. New Jersey State Senator Declan
Very true.
O'Scanlan, thank you for joining us. Well, go ahead. Sorry, say that again.
No, you're absolutely right. The absolute truth. And thank you very much for having me. Give me the opportunity to weigh in.
Please, when you're feeling better, we'll have you on video. We'd love to have you on. In spite of your being under the weather, you were amazing and gave us 15 minutes of your time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. But come back when you're feeling well. We'd love to have you on even longer.
Well, I would make the argument that your viewers and everyone is better off not having to look at me, but happy to come on when feeling better and
that is
video.
not true. You're a good-looking man. You're a good-looking man. We appreciate your time, sir. Feel better and have a wonderful morning. I appreciate you today. Thank you.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. You bet. It is 8:47 right now. We're going to take a 30-second break, and then on New Jersey Mornings, we'll continue. We will take your calls at 888-658-0234, 888-658-0234, and we'll we'll go back to Mike for that in just a minute when we return. Don't go away. Welcome back to On New Jersey Mornings. I'm Ken Rosato, 8:45, taking your calls at 888-658-0234. Right to meteorologist Mike Pavetta with a milder Garden State forecast. Good morning to you, Mike.
Good morning to you, Ken. A very pleasant feel with nice mild air in place, not just for today, but for the next several days as our air temperatures stay above average without a whole lot of wind. There's a pleasant feel around today with the sunshine. Clouds return tomorrow, but we hang on to those 60s for the middle of the week and then bring on some rain by the time we get to Thursday. We've been talking about the polar vortex all winter, diving down and giving us these bouts of Arctic air. Not anymore. It's a nice southwesterly breeze that takes over, pushing up some of that milder air with a subtropical jet. Just means it'll feel more pleasant as the days go on this week. 54, not terrible in Hamilton, 55 in Camden and 54 in Glassboro. A cooler feel along the shore points with that easterly breeze coming off of a still very chilly ocean. 50 is our high today. That's 5 degrees warmer than our average, and we take those sunrises in stride, getting earlier and earlier every morning. So with the clear sky today, enjoying that very pleasantly dry feel, although there's a little touch more humidity to the air. That's due to the wind direction. It's also due to the rain that moves back in as soon as tomorrow. It's 20% statewide chance because most of that falls in northern New Jersey. But I think by Thursday, there's a better opportunity for seeing widespread rain across New Jersey. And then by Saturday, at 40% precipitation chance, could actually be some snow that moves in by the end of the day. So looking ahead at the forecast rainfall totals, it's light tomorrow, but a better chance of seeing good soaking, like up to a half inch of rain. That really happens by Thursday. And with that, looking ahead at the air quality, we're still below 100, so it's not bad, but moderate. So it's not great, with the air quality a little bit lower, thanks to a lot of that extra moisture in the air and some stagnant air that's kind of been lingering over the last few days. So current air quality, again, anytime the number's between 50 and 100, it's okay, but could be better. When that number's below 50, it's great. By the afternoon, there's our 84 in Newark, giving us, again, looking at a little bit of haze in the sky by the end of the day. So with those clouds that move in for tomorrow, a few sprinkles in northern New Jersey, that swings on by with a weak front. We enjoy the clearing and milder weather that continues on Wednesday. Another front slides through on Thursday, bringing with it some more rain, this time more substantial. And then when that departs, we're left with a nice dry Friday, but cold weather in its place. And that could bring back the potential for some snow by the beginning of the weekend. First, we got to enjoy that taste of spring as highs climb into the 50s, near 60 each day. Saturday, cooler. That 47 happens very early on in the morning because temperatures cool down all afternoon, keeping us in the 30s by Sunday. It's too early to talk about accumulations because the system just popped up on the maps this morning and we're still 6 days away. So likely taking one of those tracks that's more reminiscent of a clipper that gives us a little more than a dusting. By Thursday in southern New Jersey, you have the better opportunity for seeing some more of that rain, and then we warm it up into Friday, but cool it down by the end of the weekend. Less of a threat of frozen precip for southern New Jersey by Saturday. So overall, feeling like spring. And Ken, I think next week we're going to have highs that are well above average, just in time for March's arrival.
Oh, I'll take it anytime. All right. Thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate it. 33 degrees now, above the freezing mark. That's a good thing. It's 8:52. And we do have some traffic to tell you about. A crash on 495 eastbound by 1 and 9 in North Bergen Township. One right lane is closed. We have an overturned vehicle on Route 21, both directions causing issues. North of I-280 in Newark, 2 left lanes closed southbound, 1 left lane closed northbound. That must be a mess. So avoid Route 21 through Newark if you can at this point. We have a crash on the Atlantic City Expressway eastbound west of Frank S. Farley Service Plaza in Hamilton Township. 1 left lane closed. You have to move over for emergency vehicles. Still have that emergency construction and sinkhole I-80 eastbound at exit 34, Route 15 in Wharton. All lanes closed and everybody's being detoured. 8:52 now, the Trump administration will begin deporting illegal alien minors in some cases. Up till now, the administration resisted deporting minors, but many individuals have been lying about their ages, claiming to be minors when they were actually over 18. Also, parents have been sending their minor children across the border alone, hoping to catch up with them at a later time. Problem is, many sex traffickers have been intercepting those children and forcing them into a cruel life of abuse. Now, ICE will modify their rule about deporting minors and will deal with the issue on a case-by-case basis. More than 600,000 children have crossed the U.S.-Mexico border illegally without a parent since 2019. A South Carolina man on death row is chosen to be killed by firing squad, the first time in 15 years that capital punishment will have been carried out by gunfire in the U.S. 67-year-old Brad Sigmund is scheduled to be shot to death March 7th, part of a spate of rapid killings that South Carolina has recently pursued as it revives executions after a pause of 13 years. Death row inmates there have a choice in the way they're put to death: electric chair, lethal injection, or shooting. If they do not make a decision themselves, the state electrocutes them. Liberal talk show host Joy Reid's evening news show on MSNBC is being canceled, part of a far-reaching programming overhaul orchestrated by Rebecca Cutler, the network's new president. The final episode of Ms. Reid's far-left wing at 7 p.m. show, The Readout, planned for sometime this week. It's been a fixture on MSNBC's lineup for the past 5 years. Reid has been criticized over the years for past homophobic statements, as well as her regular race baiting and accusations that President Trump and MAGA supporters are Nazis and fascists. 8:54, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's decision to fire the top lawyers for the Army, Navy, and Air Force represents an opening salvo in his push to remake the military into a force that's more aggressive on the battlefield and potentially less hindered by the jaws of armed conflict. Hegseth has spoken about the need to restore a warrior ethos to a military that has become soft, social justice obsessed, and more bureaucratic over the past 2 decades. Vice President Vance was the clear favorite to be President Trump's successor in the MAGA movement. In a straw poll conducted at CPAC Saturday, 61% of attendees said they would support Vance as the future GOP standard bearer. 12% said they support Steve Bannon. 7% say they would vote for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. President Trump's newly confirmed FBI Director Kash Patel expected to take on another top law enforcement role in the administration. He'll be head of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Patel's appointment could be made official as soon as next week. The ATF, part of the Department of Justice, enforces federal laws regarding the illegal use, sale, and trafficking of firearms and explosives. It's been a frequent target of Republican lawmakers who say the agency infringes on the Second Amendment, specifically as former President Biden empowered it to close a loophole that eased the buying of a firearm. 8:55, California's Governor Gavin Newsom sent a letter to Congress requesting $40 billion in funding to rebuild communities after those big LA fires. Newsom praised the Trump administration for clearing the region's toxic debris in just a few weeks after California's environmental experts initially said it could take a year. The request came just a day after Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass removed the city's fire chief in response to the region's deadly fires. California is a sanctuary state. Some lawmakers say liberal lawmakers there have spent at least $20 billion in the last year alone on illegal migrants, money that could have helped Angelenos in the current rebuilding effort. Elon Musk announced that all federal employees must send an email outlining what they accomplished in the last week. If they ignore the demand, it'll be considered a resignation. The president of one of the federal employee unions told those employees don't respond. The vast majority of federal workers have been working from home since the pandemic, in spite of being ordered back to in-person work. Musk, the head of Doge, says worker productivity from home is extremely low and in many cases not even existent, prompting the demand. Courts have consistently upheld the president's authority to fire federal employees under the executive branch at will. The Small Business Administration says it will not look to claw back hundreds of millions of dollars in pandemic-era money handed out to concert venues shuttered by COVID-19. Over $200 million was paid to wealthy and successful musicians like artist Lil Wayne, who received millions for luxury clothes and private jets. New records show the SBA has closed out reviews of $155 million in grants to celebs. Some of those other celebs include Marshmello, Chris Brown, and Alice in Chains. They used it for private jets, parties, luxury clothes, and it's all considered perfectly legal. The Trump administration now wants to get that money back, but it doesn't look like it's going to come back anytime soon. It is coming up on 8:58. Meteorologist Mike Pavetta says we will see some sunshine. It'll be milder today, highs in the mid to upper 40s. That is on New Jersey Mornings for your Monday. I'm Ken Rosato. Remember, you could stream us on ONNJersey.com, ONNJ.com, Roku, Fire TV, News On, Samsung TV Plus, Apple TV, YouTube, Facebook, and X. And now we stream live on Rumble and Twitch. Just go to twitch.tv/OnNewJersey. Spell it all out, ONNEWJERSEY. We'll catch you again tomorrow morning at 7. Tell all your friends about us. Until then, thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.